Hey everyone, it's Kellen Brauer from RacerX back again with another race examination video. Going to talk about a couple things from Atlanta. Off the start of the 450 main event, I wanted to key in on Eli Tomac here because he's going to start on the outside. And if you actually remember going back to the heat race, he got to the first corner first, and then Justin Barcia actually pushed him out in the first corner. So Eli ends up with a worse gate pick. He ends up out here. If we go back to Glendale, though, remember Eli actually had a pretty good start from the outside gate pick at Glendale. So what was interesting to me about this is that even though, yes, he didn't get a better gate pick, he still ended up in a similar spot to where he started at Glendale. And this is a long start straight at Atlanta. So it wasn't like he was way outside, and it really just came down to whether if he got a good jump or not, he could still control it into the first corner. He doesn't get a good jump whatsoever, though. Definitely behind a lot of people, and then he backs out of the challenge quite early, so he's already behind kind of this main group going into the first corner. And then, as most people know about first corners, a lot of these inside guys are just going to tuck to the inside of the bales and still maybe come out ahead of him. The only saving grace, I guess, for Tomac in this situation is that Webb actually got a worse start than him. So Webb, in a situation where he needed to get a better start than Tomac to maybe come through this first corner in a better position, didn't, and ended up behind Tomac. So bad starts for both of our championship guys, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of the race because we had 3 guys start up front, really 4 guys start up front that we expected to battle for the win if it wasn't going to be Tomac or Webb. And then right away, Chase Sexton went to the lead. I wanted to highlight this for a second because Sexton, it's really remarkable in this straightaway. I mean, you can see how far back of Roczen he is going off this triple into this finish line double right here. And even as I go over the double, I mean, Roczen still has a pretty good advantage on him, and there's only 1 double left into this left-hander. But watch Sexton. He's going to land like a little bit early. Like you can see where their trail is coming off the rear tire of their bike. Roczen's, maybe starting about here with his landing, Sexton about here. And you can see that Sexton, with that little extra drive, then pulls almost, maybe like half a bike length back of Kenny going into the face of this one. And then again, they both do this little scrub thing. Chase lands just slightly earlier again. Roczen goes a little bit deep. And that's the difference right there, is just 2 little bit shorter jumps, a little bit better scrubs down that first straightaway, and Chase is able to go into the lead. Let's jump over to Tom Journet's footage here a little bit, because I want to talk about Justin Barcia going through the whoops. And Barcia has a pretty animated riding style, but I love watching this technique stuff like this. So you can see as he enters the whoops, he's going to get a little bit of a kick off of the second whoop, and it's going to pitch him right, left. And you can kind of see like he's almost dancing back and forth and adjusting the weight on each foot peg. Like if we go back just a little bit, you'll see that initial kick right there, and then the butt kind of kicks out to the right, and you can see how much contorted his body is, where he's kind of almost like looking directly to the left, looking off the track to the left, and that's just trying to control it with his knees so that when it kicks back the other way, he's able to straighten the bike back out. And I love watching little technique things like that. And Barcia was really good throughout the whoops throughout the main event. He was blitzing them the entire time, whereas guys are starting to go to the inside in this corner right here, and he actually uses this to his advantage. As Roczen goes defensive, inside starts jumping through here, Barcia continued to blitz, and he said a couple weeks ago, blitz till you die. He loves blitzing the whoops, and obviously it worked out for him here because he's able to get around Kenny. He doesn't quite get to Chase, but nice move there to get into second place, and I just love watching this stuff, man. He's so good about, methodically working his way through whoops and using his body English to make the bike do what he wants it to through those whoops. And man, a little thing that Barcia doesn't get credit for is how hard he rides for all 20 minutes of a main event. Can't be very easy to do that and maintain a good level of fitness, but Barcia's always been really good at that. But for Chase Sexton, it was a pretty simple win, and finally got it done the way that we expected him to, because he's been leading these races quite a bit but hasn't won many of them when he's been in front for this long. And so he was ecstatic to actually get it done and lead all 20 minutes of a main event. And then, I mean, come on, a little bit of a bummer here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. We have a piece of plywood that these guys have to do a burnout on. It's a speedway. I know that Atlanta Motor Speedway just repaved and that they're stoked to see the speedway not get ruined by someone burning out, but it's a burnout. Let these guys do a burnout. Come on now. I want to remind everybody that this video is presented by OnX Off-Road. Know where to go with the #1 off-road GPS app. Access 500,000 plus miles of trails and roads, open dates, and public lands. Use the code RACERX, that's RACERX, for 20% off when you download the OnX app today. Let's talk some 250 stuff here from Atlanta going into the first corner. It's actually going to be Hayden Deegan from about the middle gate. Coming around, grabbing the whole shot. He's going to lead Hunter Lawrence down this first straightaway and into the next turn. But what's actually going on is behind that, Tom Vialle gets a little bit of what he called a cross jump there with Cody Schock, and then Cullen Park goes down. Chris Blows does a great job to kind of enduro over it, and we got a little bit of a back angle view here from Tom Journet getting it from the back. So I wanted to highlight a couple things here because Vialle thought this was a cross jump. So as we see, we got Hawkins to the left, Schock here to the right, and Vialle jumps in between them. And what I want you to focus on is that as they take off, Hawkins and Schock don't really get much closer to each other in any respect of the form, but Vialle kind of definitely veers away from Hawkins. So is it a situation where the jump, kind of going left into this corner, maybe those guys were already setting up for it a little bit early and Vialle wasn't expecting it? Or was it actually a situation that Vialle ended up going a little bit right? It's really tough to tell. I would put this more down to a racing incident from what you can tell from these two shots right here, because it does seem like it's just slow incidental contact. I love Vialle trying to kick Shock and push him away, and then he just lands a little bit sideways, hung up on the rear tire, and goes down. I mean, fortunately for Vialle, not hurt from this. He is going to be back this next weekend coming up here in East Rutherford. But just first lap stuff, a big double jump off the start straight, and these guys end up getting collected. They're battling for about 4th and 5th on the first lap. Hunter Lawrence had a super wild ride here at the end of the first lap, or about halfway through the first lap while he was leading the race after he got around Hayden Deegan, goes off the track, collects himself, and gets back on. And really what this boils down to is if his front tire hits this right here, I think he's going to end up being okay. He's just going to kind of bounce awkwardly, but the front tire gets over that just enough that it's going to kick him forward. So he goes into this next one with his feet off the pegs, and it really kicks him. And honestly, pretty remarkable job. If we go back just a little bit right here, remarkable that his left foot hits the ground right here. You can see it right there actually hitting the ground. The fact that this doesn't kick him further upwards and back off the back of the bike, I know he's doing a Superman here, it's quite ridiculous, but the fact that that doesn't kick him harder and his upper body is able to pull that bike closer to him is really remarkable. A nice save. He said afterwards that definitely knocked the wind out of him, and he's definitely feeling a little bit sore this week in the certain area, but I mean, kudos to him, because getting hit in that area at any point in time definitely takes it out of you for a couple minutes, and he went right back on the charge, actually almost past Deegan about a half lap later, and then basically a lap later going into that same roller section gets back around Deegan for the race lead. So pretty good stuff there for Hunter Lawrence. Let's talk about the whoops again, just because this is a great back view that we have from Tom Journet, and Jordan Smith goes for a wild ride about halfway through this 250 main event. You can see, I mean, look at all these different ruts that we have, like how much more notched out you can tell from the backside of these whoops that they are. When we get a side view of these whoops, you don't get as much of that angle to show how notchy these whoops get. But even this Atlanta soil, which hardened up throughout the day, still got pretty notchy. And you can see Smith hits this little one right here. Look at how sideways he's going to get kicked. Rear tire plants in right there. And again, similar to what Barcia was doing, kind of using his knees to pinch the bike and try to pull it back together. And by the end of the whoops, he's going straight again. So really, really good stuff there by Jordan Smith. A nice save. Unfortunately, it did not serve his teammate well. Later in the races, Nate Thrasher coming through the whoops behind Jordan Smith, and then Hayden Deegan comes through the whoops. Thrasher's going to miss a whoop, kind of jump in between them, and then end up going hard over the bars. Really tough crash there for Thrasher. And then we found out earlier today that he is going to miss the rest of 2023. Dislocated hip, had some bone fragments that he needed to get cleaned up in there as well, and a broken collarbone. Sidelines Thrasher for the rest of 2023. Hate to see that. Really unfortunate, of course. But for Hunter Lawrence, it was another win, his 6th win of the season in 7 races for this 250 East Championship, and now he gets to roll into the showdown with a bunch of momentum trying to win this title.